Sit down if you want to.
Right in the middle of what's going on.
I'm in the middle of an interrogation.
Take a seat, young Skywalker.
The middle children of history, man.
Middle of the day, Alfred.
Please, take a seat there.
Right now, I'm in the middle of nowhere.
Stop the middle of the base hit!
Meeting in the middle.
Like.
They fought for the freedom of middle.
The middle of
the middle of a
war! This is friggin' ridiculous!
Why don't we have a seat to talk about?
No! Not the middle seat!
Hello everyone and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Middle Seats Audio Edition, the best seat in the house for all things movies, TV, and everything else in entertainment. My name is Andrew Roger, I'm your host with the least most, and this is our very first episode. And I'm joined here today by two of my fantastic co-hosts that you're going to get to know really well in a couple of minutes. I'm here with Mr. Nathaniel Lungarini. Nate, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Drew.
I'm good.
And actually, hang on. Lungarini, Drew.
What did I say?
Not Lungarini.
Oh, my God.
It's okay.
Do you want to start over?
But let's clear it up now, or else I'd have to be Lungarini for the entire
change your name. How long have I known you? And I didn't know? Okay, well, we'll get into how long I've known you in a bit.
Yeah.
But I'm going to transition here to my other partner in crime, Mr. Jake Hensler. That's right? Hensler?
You're putting a Z on it, but yeah, no, I'm kidding. You're fine.
You have a German last name.
I know. Very German.
But the Middle Seats, we are a movie review show. You hopefully stumbled across us because you love movies or you love us, and we thank you. If you're new, if you're not new, welcome. If you are new, welcome as well. We're always looking for new people to listen to the show, especially since it's our first episode. But this show is divided into three segments. Our first segment, it's called Lobby Talk. We're going to be talking about some of just random topics, just like you would at the lobby of a movie theater. Then we're going to talk about some news that's going on in the world of movies. And then we're going to get into our feature review, which is of the adaptation of the Stephen King novel, It. So a little bit about ourselves before we get into this thing full throttle. Jake, Nate, and I are all graduates of Marist College. We were in Marist College Television together, and we all share a passion for movies. Jake and I hosted a show for 3.5 years, also titled The Middle Seats, kind of an At the Movies Roger Ebert, Fiend Siskel style show. And now we're here taking the show from broadcast to audio. Nate is joining us. He has been one of our directors and behind-the-scene people, but he's here now as one of the crew. So, Nate, we're really happy to have you. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself here?
Well, great to be on the show here, Drew, and I'm really, really excited to actually be part of the talent officially. Let's see, a little bit about myself. I'm definitely more of the tech guy. I like to solve problems that Jake tends to start.
Hey.
And then, but definitely have a big passion for a lot of fun sci-fi movies or any types of movies that break the molds, either from a technical standpoint or it's just some way to blow your mind. My favorite movies are Inception or Memento, both Christopher Nolan movies that break the mold of filmmaking and put a new spin on something cool. And definitely excited to be here, excited to review some movies.
All right. Jake, I think this is your turn to talk a little bit about yourself.
All right. You covered a lot of the basics. I guess if we're going to like super basics, I'm born and raised Long Island, New York. Movie passion started when I was probably early middle high school. My dad threw me a slew of great movies, and one of them happened to be what is my now current favorite, Pulp Fiction, my current favorite movie of all time. Fight Club is probably my second. He introduced me to that also, and thus the film passion began. And I guess as far as favorite directors go, I love Tarantino, and like Nate said, I love Christopher Nolan as well. I also believe that if you like movies and don't like Spielberg, you're lying. That's just a personal opinion of mine. I think everybody has to like Spielberg a little bit.
I don't think it can be an opinion if it's not wrong.
That's very true. That's one of those opinion facts, really.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. I don't know. I think as far as movies go, that pretty much describes me. I guess we should probably turn to you. because you like more animated stuff and more unique stuff.
I'm not just going to be the animated guy, first of all. I do love animated movies, but I would say...
I had to call you out.
Out of the three of us, I would say I have the most diverse watching kind of list. I don't really discern.
Oh, look at me. I'm Andrew. I'm so pretentious.
No, he just watches 120 of the releases every year.
And that's 150, actually. I try to get to every movie that's released wide and as many limited movies. I've still got a long way to go as far as watching some of the older classics. For now, my favorites are Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, The Dark Knight, Godfather, Social Network, The Incredibles, Empire Strikes Back, all the cliched choices. I love Tarantino, I love Spielberg, I love Nolan. My favorite personally is David Fincher, of course, made The Social Network and Seven and all those different twisty, bendy movies. Gone Girl's another one, Fight Club, like Jake said. But I am the one that you're going to probably hear talking about a small, terrible movie that these two guys avoided that I just wanted to bring up and kind of rage about for a little bit. So we bring different things to the table, as you can see, and we're happy you're here with us as we start our journey, and we really hope that we get you to stick around. So we're going to start with our first segment called Lobby Talk.
Let's all go to the lobby.
So this is the segment basically where we're going to just talk about a general topic. Each member of the crew will introduce a topic each week. I will start because I'm the de facto host, and I want to talk about, guys, a little bit about the summer of 2017. It's come, it's gone, though with its box office here, doesn't really feel like it ever left, does it? Because since when does a horror movie make almost $200 million? But that's beside the point. So summer 2016 was considered by many in the industry to be kind of a disaster, both critically and financially. There were the films that weren't enough of a financial hit to justify their big budgets, like the Ghostbusters reboot, for example. There were the films that did make a lot of money but did not do well critically, like Suicide Squad. And then every once in a while there was a financial and critical disaster, kind of like, off the top of my head, I would say Legend of Tarzan wasn't exactly loved.
Oh, God, that was so frustrating.
Clearly not loved by Jake. But summer 2017 came, and I guess we're going to have our thoughts on it here. I personally found it was a lot better. Financially, it was still one of the worst summers ever.
I think the worst summer in 10 years, right?
And especially when you're adjusting for inflation and everything. Movies were still not making money in the United States. However, for me, I think the quality was a lot better. And we can debate the merit of how much better it was as we get further along in the show. But for now, Nate Lungarini, what was your favorite movie of summer 2017?
I think my favorite was Wind River. I just thought it was an excellent piece of work. And it was one of the few original movies that wasn't part of a pre-existing franchise or any sort of extended or origin story, any of that sort of thing. It was an original story.
No, I didn't say anything. Go ahead.
Okay. So Wind River was written and directed by Taylor Sheridan. It starred Jeremy Renner and focused on this FBI agent played by Elizabeth Olsen and Jeremy Renner's character as a wildlife service tracker to try to solve a murder of a young Indian woman in an Indian reservation in Wyoming. And it was so dark, it was so brutal, and it was so freaking intense. I loved this movie. I was speechless for a little bit after watching it. It was a gut wrencher, but I really enjoyed it.
Taylor Sheridan especially is making a nice career for himself with these Sicario, Hell or High Water, all of these kind of gritty original films set in these backwards towns. And I agree. I love that film. I wouldn't be personally my favorite, but we'll get to my favorite in a second. Jake Hensler, what was your favorite movie or one of your favorite movies of summer 2017?
I was going to say, a lot of the movies from this summer ended up being in my favorites for the year. And there's honestly a few I would love to talk about. But if you want to avoid franchises and such, I would say Baby Driver is a great movie to talk about. Because, like Nate said, originality is very important, and Wind River accomplished that. But Baby Driver is also so original. It takes this this pretty simple, almost tale as old as time. Bank robbers and action and car chasing and stuff. It's all been done before, but Baby Driver puts this awesome, fun, upbeat musical spin on it, and it makes it just so great. And all the performances, his direction, his writing, the music, it all just comes together so well. I really enjoyed it.
The thing that baffles me the most about Baby Driver is that, for me personally, I love the film as well, but for me, how can that not be the best film that someone's ever made? And for me, it's not my favorite Edgar Wright film, which is just astonishing, because for most other people, it'd be a masterpiece.
Especially from an editing perspective, I love that movie's editing, especially with the music cutting to the scenes for like the big shootout and the car chase. It was great. Really
it's a
great
movie
in that
with
regard.
rhythm from top to bottom, and I don't think we're ever going to see anything like it. It's planned to the exact millisecond over and over, and it gets better and better on rewatch.
Yeah, I've seen it twice as well, and both times were just so awesome. It's so watchable. I could rewatch it again and enjoy it right now.
This is a summer where there's been a lot of movies with rewatch value, and my number one film of the summer certainly had that. Although Dunkirk by Christopher Nolan doesn't feel per se like an original film, it's a war film. It's got some of the same elements as past war films. Christopher Nolan's known as a big budget director. He was known best for The Dark Knight and stuff, but he is known for original work. This movie it's transfixing in how big in scale it is, and how amazingly directed and choreographed everything is within the film. There's no real characters or story. It is just this transcendent coverage of a huge event, the evacuation of Dunkirk by the British Army in World War II. That was kind of described as a military disaster by some, but as others, Nolan turns the camera around and shows really what the struggle was like, and how horrible it was to be on this beach at this time. We don't really get to connect with one specific person, but he tells the story in these segments that all come together in different chronological order, and it's just brilliantly done. It's unlike any other war film you'll ever see. It's unlike any other film you'll ever see, and I really think he is the only filmmaker working today that could have made a film like Dunkirk. And it might be near his masterpiece. It might not be my favorite of his, but this is the film that it feels like he was born to make, especially.
Yeah, I think it's one of the few films that only Christopher Nolan can pull off. It's kind of, unfortunately, almost cliche for him to do chronologically disjointed movies. But this was a new spin on it. Instead of having different back and forth timelines, you had 3 timelines that slowly converge to end up at the same point, rather than jointed between the two. It was a fun film. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm glad that was another film you brought up, Dunkirk, because it is, even if you're someone, and I typically am, but even if you're someone who's a stickler for story and characters and plot, you may find a little struggle with this, but really visually, technologically, and even just telling the story of this war, it's so phenomenal. And especially I got to see it in some sort of 3D, and it was just.
Well, not 3D, right? You mean like
no, IMAX. Excuse me, IMAX. Like, and even on
3D.
No, I'm not a 3D guy. Excuse me, but like a technological standpoint, like the cinematography in it, all his shots, all his angles, the intensity, even the score that like the stopwatch ticker in the score that goes off throughout the movie. You know what I'm talking about? Just little things he adds to it like that are just amazing and adds so much intensity to the movie. I loved it also. I loved it.
It's without a doubt one of my favorite Hans Zimmer scores. And I just love how the editing adds drama to parts that are out of order. You know what I mean? Like, so he builds this big climax with the music out of parts that are happening not at the same time. And it's I would just never think to do anything like that. And there's only a few select people in Hollywood that would think to, direct a film that seems very straightforward on the surface like that.
Yeah, he's a genius.
He is.
And even like I was saying, if you got annoyed with it due to a lack of story, I still think there are some incredible human moments that he captures that are just unbelievable.
Yeah.
he got a great performance out of Harry Styles. I think that says enough.
Exactly. And Tom Hardy, who can act with his eyes better than almost anybody.
Yeah, I mean, the less needs to be said about him. He has proven himself time and time again, especially with a mask on. I think we should talk more in the grand scope of some of the movies that maybe not necessarily our favorites, but were still pretty damn good. I'm going to go to bat for War for the Planet of the Apes by Matt Reeves, the end of this new prequel Apes trilogy and the conclusion of the saga that will eventually lead up to Planet of the Apes. And it's just...
And a surprisingly good trilogy.
And a surprisingly good trilogy, absolutely. And that film is just... It's blockbuster filmmaking with heart and with story and with an emphasis on character and emotions and making sure that everything feels as realistic as possible for a Planet of the Apes film. And, of course, the CGI work and Andy Serkis is incredible. But I know, Jake, you were a big proponent of that one, right?
Yeah, I rewatched both its predecessors, and then I've obviously seen the new one, and they're all of them are amazing, really amazing, start to finish. Like I know they are blockbusters, they all come out over the summer, but what amazing, like everything you just said, amazing work from Serkis and Reeves' writing and directing both are just what a phenomenal blockbuster franchise he came up with, and something that's, it seems like kind of hard to do these days. It seems hard to create a trilogy start to finish, a good beginning, middle, and end. And he really did not only accomplish that, but accomplish it in a reboot as well.
Yeah. Oh, man. It's the impossible balancing act that he did with that.
Yeah, it's so impressive.
Nate, are there any movies that came out this summer that you want to go up to bat for?
Yeah. This... Like every summer now, from here on to the end of time, had a couple superhero movies in it. The big hitters this summer were Wonder Woman, which blew the box office out of the water.
Yeah.
And also Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Spider-Man Homecoming. I think my personal favorite out of the bunch was Spider-Man. Marvel's just the most consistent in that regard. But all three movies were fun movies. Definitely enjoyed all of them. Good popcorn flicks, good times in the theater. Maybe a little forgettable for all three at some points, but all three definitely had some fun moments indeed.
Go ahead, Jake.
Go ahead. All right. I was gonna say I agree that all of them were good. Thank God for Wonder Woman. I'm so glad it was good. But all three were good. All three maybe on the slightly forgettable side. Like none of the three blew me away. But I would say, although I like Spider-Man, I would say it was actually probably my least favorite of the three, if I'm being honest. But generally, the points that you made, I definitely agree with. All were good, all were fun. Good popcorn flicks. If you enjoy superhero movies, you pretty much should see all three. But none of the three really blew me out of the water like some have in the past.
I would agree that Spider-Man Homecoming was personally the weakest for me. And I think that's just a preferential thing based on... just my entertainment value going into the film. They're all about on the same level, I would agree. I think you guys are underselling Guardians 2 a bit, because I think that movie does a lot with its characters that I was not expecting.
Yeah, that would be my favorite of the three.
Yeah.
By a little bit.
Yeah, it's not a landslide or anything like that for me as well.
Yeah.
But just speeding up the conversation a little bit, I think there was a lot of movies this summer, just even the middling stuff there wasn't a lot of terrible stuff. There was a lot of good in the middle stuff that I enjoyed personally. And I want to kind of float this idea out here. Is this one of the most consistent and best summers ever? Because these are the movies, just a short list of the movies that I really enjoyed. Dunkirk, War for the Planet of the Apes, Baby Driver, Wind River, Guardians of the Galaxy, Detroit, A Ghost Story, Wonder Woman, Spider-Man Homecoming, Captain Underpants, Logan Lucky, It Comes at Night, which I know, Jake, you're a huge fan of, and I'll let you talk about that in a second. Annabelle Creation, Alien Covenant. These are all movies I really liked, and that's just scratching the surface of them. Do we think that there's a legitimate discussion here that quality-wise this is one of the best summers?
I think there is a discussion, but I don't think it's the best. I think I did a little research, I went back about a decade or just shy, and I think it might be number 3. There's an argument for number 2, but I think 2008 and 2014 rival it, and I'll tell you why 2008. Dark Knight, Iron Man, both came out, as well as Step Brothers and Tropic Thunder, just off the top of my head.
Kung Fu Panda.
Top of my head. Kung Fu Panda in 2008. Those were... Oh, Wall-E was summer?
Wall-E was that summer too? Wow.
Yeah, so I think 2008 might take the cake there. But the fact that we're having a conversation about this shows how good 2017 really was, especially after 2016.
Nate, I know you have strong feelings on this, so let me have it.
Now, I won't argue that this is the worst summer ever. It's not. Even last year was definitely another sufferer of this. I just thought this was a boring summer. There were a lot of safe films this summer. We just talked about all the superhero movies. Those are big blockbusters that everyone goes to see in the theaters. And they were all just so safe. And nobody took any big risks. Like, oh, sure, Guardians had a little bit of character work. But nothing that blew me away as a film. I'm thinking back to even like the summer of 2010, where Inception came out. Toy Story 3 was one of the only big sequels of that year, and it took a huge step forward in its story. I think we're just kind of bloated by sequels right now, and I think the general audiences agreed, and that's why this is one of the least performing summers in a while.
See, I think it's a tough balance because I think there were really good original stuff, like Dunkirk's original, Baby Driver's original, and both those movies did do well, and I agree, audiences are rewarding films that pique their interest, especially throughout this year. Like, why was Get Out such a huge hit? Because it was an original concept, and people loved it. Split, kind of the same thing happened with that. It's just been a really good year for horror, actually, it seems to.
It seems so. Well, that's, I think, where a lot of the originality is coming from. Get Out was an original film.
Raw was a foreign horror film, but
Brandy
Raw was...
What was that, Jake?
Did either of you see Raw? It was a foreign horror film. I thought it was very, very good. I don't know if it came... I don't think it came to any theaters in America, so you'd have to kind of really, really look for it to find it. But I found
just a really quick premise for the viewers.
Oh, yeah. Raw is a foreign horror film about this girl who's entering a prestigious veterinary school. Her mom went. Her sister currently enrolls. And it's like the hardest to get to, but it's the most prestigious one you can get to. And she's a vegetarian, so she doesn't eat meat. And one of the hazing rituals to get into the school is to eat like a raw rabbit's kidney or something like that, like something disgusting. Yeah. But she does it to go through initiation to get into school, and she finds out she ends up loving or having this love for the taste of meat to the point where she loses her mind and becomes a cannibal. But it's more like not only does she become a cannibal, it's her descent
really out there.
Descent into madness as a character, which I thought the whole movie was so good.
I know,
it's hard to find, but...
It's hard to find, and it sounds hard to describe, because that sounded like it escalated really fucking fast.
It kind of does, though. But it was, I don't know. I thought it was, if you can handle subtitles and blood and gore, I think it's absolutely worth the watch.
Definitely. I have heard good things about it. But getting back to the talk about the, consistency versus...
Yeah, sorry. We talked about horror movies.
That's okay. That's what this segment is for, and I appreciate your input there. I think, for me personally, I just appreciated consistency this summer. I'm looking at the list of the movies that I liked from this summer, and there's a lot of them above 7 out of 10, whereas in past summers there's been some great stuff. I agree. 2010 is a good example, where we had the great movies were amazing, but then there was a Last Airbender, there was Iron Man 2, which was middling, there's Twilight Eclipse, that kind of stuff, where they were kind of on the lower end. This summer, I felt even the movies that I didn't love, I still really enjoyed. And that might just be that's definitely just a preference thing, and then we could run in circles all day about that. Jake, you bring up a good point about 2008. That is a pretty loaded summer.
2008 was huge.
2008 was huge.
I don't know if this is the best summer ever, but it's one of the better ones in a while.
2012 was also a really good one. That had Dark Knight Rises, that had Avengers.
2014, I remember thinking was pretty good.
Avengers was still one of the best theater experiences I've ever had in a
definitely.
movie.
Yeah, me too. I think everybody that went to see Avengers opening night had a similar experience.
Yep.
But
me too.
That's a discussion for a completely another time. I think this will wrap up our lobby talk here. So we had a good discussion, I think. And we're going to say goodbye to summer, and we're right in the thick of fall. and we're going to get to it later. But first, we're going to talk about some news for some future movies that might be coming out, or just some future things going on in entertainment.
Extra, extra, read all about it!
So our first story tonight, and boy, it's a big one. Colin Trevorrow, who was originally slated to direct Star Wars Episode 9, he got the gig after directing Jurassic World and bringing in $1 gazillion for...
bajillion.
That's the exact mathematical term that movie actually made. But then he released a little movie this summer called The Book of Henry, and that was not discussed in our favorite movies of the summer because you two didn't see it, and I hated it. And that's a movie that we could talk about for days if you guys saw it, because it's one of the craziest and stupidest movies I've ever seen.
And it only made $4 million.
Oh my god.
So it took a couple of months. That movie came out in June, but it appears that Kathleen Kennedy, who is becoming notorious as kind of a director, producer. No, not that bad.
I'm kidding.
A control freak. We'll say that. She seems to have gotten cold feet, and now Trevorrow is out. And who's back? J.J. Abrams, who of course directed Star Wars The Force Awakens. Kathleen Kennedy went to his house and Force Awakened his ass up, and now he's directing Star Wars Episode 9. He is co-writing the script with Chris Terrio, who is best known for helping Ben Affleck win an Oscar for Argo, but also helping DC kind of sink their ship with Batman v Superman. And the release date has been changed. It was originally supposed to come out on May 24th, 2019. It has now swapped dates with the Aladdin remake, and it will be coming out on December 20th, 2019, kind of returning Star Wars to this December spot that it's been in ever since The Force Awakens. So obviously there's a lot to digest here, guys. Nate, what do you think of Abrams returning? What do you think of Trevorrow's firing? What do you think of the release date? What do you think about life? Just let me know.
Well, I guess it's not super uncommon for a big name movie like this to have a little bit of drama in the production process. We got a little bit of that with the Avengers series and this is Josh Whedon. It's not uncommon, so I'm not panicking for the future of Star Wars. When Force Awakens came out, everyone was in love with Abrams, and then after rewatching a little bit, and maybe after watching some South Park making fun of it, kind of realizing, okay, Star Wars The Force Awakens was kind of predictable, kind of running off for nostalgia, but it was still a fun movie. So I'm not scared at all by Abrams being back at the helm. I think he'll do a good job. I'm just hoping that we don't see a fourth Death Star.
Oh my god, that would be too much.
It'd be way too much. So hopefully Episode 8 leaves us in a good place for Abrams to bring in Episode 9 for a nice crescendo that doesn't involve a giant planet-destroying battle station.
Jake, what do you think?
I think you know this about me, but I've been saying get rid of Trevorrow since he was signed. And which is actually funny, because we disagree on this. I enjoy Jurassic World. I don't love it, but I think it's good, and it accomplished what it was set out to do. Are there plot holes? Yes. But generally, I think it's a pretty good movie, and I think its direction isn't bad. But for Star Wars, I was saying get rid of him from the beginning. It's one thing to have a fun action blockbuster. It's another to wrap up a third part trilogy to one of the greatest sci-fi stories of all time. So I'm glad he's out, and Abrams has proven himself a awesome director, and I'm happy with the choice to bring him back. I have no qualms with that.
I think it's a safe choice, personally. I was kind of hoping.
True.
It would have been wishful thinking on my part for them to go out and get someone huge like that we love, like a Dennis Villeneuve or something.
Could you imagine like a David Fincher Star Wars movie?
I was saying George Miller, who did Mad Max Fury Road. What a crazy Star Wars that would be.
And see, it's a tough balancing act, I think, because you want someone really ambitious, but you also need to keep the house style. It can't be too radical of a change, because then it won't feel like Star Wars anymore. And I think Abrams, while a safe choice, I'm fine with it going back to his hands. Trevorrow, let me clarify my thoughts on Jurassic World a little bit. I don't hate the movie. I think it is a perfectly average blockbuster that certainly did not deserve to blow up like it did. Nate, what do you think about Jurassic World? Because I know Jake and I kind of disagree on it, but
I'm kind of in the same boat. It got stupid lucky and made a crap ton of money. It is not a perfect film. It's a fun film. It's a popcorn flick film. And it's definitely better than, let's say, like a Transformers or another big blockbuster. But it never really had a big heart. That's about it. It wasn't terribly original or memorable.
So Trevorrow being out, that's a huge story in its own, but I think it adds to this current narrative that's continually going around that pretty much every Star Wars movie has had some kind of behind-the-scenes drama at this point. Rogue One, it was rumored that Gareth Edwards was kicked off for reshoots to take over the film at the end. Phil Lord and Chris Miller were fired from their Han Solo movie, and now Ron Howard's cleaning up the scraps over there right now, and now we have this. The only two that seemingly have had no problems are J.J. Abrams, and apparently Lucasfilm loves Rian Johnson, and I'm really surprised that they didn't offer him Episode 9 after finishing The Last Jedi. So
they probably have to see how Episode 8 goes first, because if Episode 8 doesn't sit well with audiences and they hired him for 9, it'd probably be pretty bad.
That is true.
Or it'd probably be very worrisome. So I could see why they picked Abrams.
But I think there's some insider info that they are very happy with it. It's hard to tell right now. We've only had one trailer for it, which I think is unprecedented on its own.
It's crazy.
But I guess we'll see.
And it's still going to make a gajillion.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be top 5 grossing movies of all time.
Yeah, I think it honestly, it doesn't need to show a single other thing. It got people hooked with that first 2-minute trailer. Just keep putting that in front of films. And that's not the nature of the beast now, but it's a possibility, and it would be one of the only films to do that. As far as Trevorrow goes, he seemed to have done this, did this to himself. There is some kind of word that he's a little difficult to work with, that he's kind of an auteur, and that, of course, Book of Henry was completely rejected. So I don't know what the correlation was between that, but I guess we'll see. And I think Abrams as a replacement on a quick note is a good one. Are we in agreement about that?
I think so.
I think there could have been... I think a safe choice is a good way to put it. But, again, I understand why, and I don't have any problems with that.
All right, so I think we've kind of exhausted this topic a little bit. Let's move on to the next news story. Liam Neeson. Guys, what's your favorite Liam Neeson movie off the top of your head?
Huh. I actually don't know, to be honest.
I didn't know this would be a stumper.
Well, because, like...
You got Schindler's List and you got Taken. Those are the two big movies that I remember him for.
Right. I know there's been others, but, like, what is my favorite? I don't know. Maybe Ted 2? I'm kidding.
Get out of here.
He is great in Ted 2. But
his, 2-minute scene is pretty fun.
But this career renaissance that he's been having, Nate touched on Taken back in 2009, and that movie was a huge box office success and kind of established Neeson as this kind of unlikely action hero. He's been going on that road now for about 8-9 years, just making these B-movie action films, exhausting all of the audience's patience for the Taken franchise to the point where the third one was almost unwatchable. But now we're at a point where we have reached what I like to call Neeson fatigue. And we had this around the time of the Phantom Menace as well, but it's come resurface again in a different context. And it seems like Liam Neeson has understood that too, because apparently now he is retiring from action movies. And this is a quote that he shared with, I believe it was Vanity Fair. He goes, and excuse my language, "Guys, I'm 60-fucking-5. At some point, the audience is going to be like, come on." Now, what do we think of this? I mean, I'll save my thoughts for a bit. Let's start with Jake this time. What do you think of Liam Neeson retiring from action films?
I think it makes sense, and I think people, and including myself, people kind of forget that he's done a lot of action. When people think Liam Neeson action, they just think Taken, but he was also in Phantom Menace. He's also in Batman Begins. He's done a few action movies in his time, and at 65, I could kind of see him, throwing the towel in. I actually thought he was older than 65, to be honest. I thought he was a little older than that.
I would agree with that too. Yeah.
But I think it makes sense, and he's got a movie coming out called Mark Felt or something like that. So I guess he's already on the path to drama acting again.
Mm-hmm. Well, he had a big,
which, you know, I think it makes sense for him at his age.
He had a big part in Silence last year with Martin Scorsese too.
Yes, that too. Yeah.
Nate, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm glad he's making the change, and I like the fact that he's in touch with his audiences at this point, because he had the Plane movie, Nonstop. Thank you. It's just completely forgettable movies. The Taken movies, and we don't need to see him be an action hero anymore. The last one that I enjoyed was Gray.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Where he was where he was a badass nature guy, but after that, it's kind of like Samuel L. Jackson, where you don't see him as the character he's playing anymore. It's just Liam Neeson in an action movie, and he can't see anybody else but Liam Neeson. That's at least been my take on it. So I'm glad he's moving on to actual character roles, because he is fun. He's a good actor, and he deserves more than running over a fence and taking 3 in 25 cuts.
Yeah, and I personally think it's probably, as far as like legacy goes, it's probably a smart choice, because, you know, you look at him versus Stallone and Schwarzenegger. I don't think he's at that kind of Stallone level, where Stallone is just these goofy B action movies. I don't think Liam Neeson is quite there yet. So if he doesn't want to end up there, I think he's making a good career choice.
He could get there very easily, and I'm kind of with the decision to get out now. Liam Neeson for years was not an action hero at all. Okay, you're right. You're right, Jake. He did make appearances in Star Wars. He made an appearance in Batman Begins, but those were the exception. And now that's been the rule of his career ever since Taken, because his agent saw what Taken could do, and they were able to ride that out for a bit. But I think fatigue has started to set in, and I really respect an actor that's really in touch with his audience, like Nate said. Now,
Amen.
Does this mean that he never does an action movie again? Probably not. But I'm thinking that his time as the star, a la Stallone, a la Schwarzenegger, is over. First of all, it's amazing that those guys are still doing it in the first place. But you're right, Jake. They've done some real bad movies throughout their days.
Yeah.
They also don't have the range that Liam Neeson does as an actor, though. Stallone is great when he is, Rocky, but
in Creed, yeah,
that's about it.
Yeah, that's the only time he ever even approaches stretching. And I think,
right.
And I think Neeson has a lot more to offer, and we even saw that last year in Silence. He did a great job in that film, and it felt a lot like the days where he would star in like a Schindler's List or a Rob Roy or something like that. So I think this is definitely a good time to retire. Speaking of things that need to retire, the DC Extended Universe. We'll get.
I like what you did there.
Thank you. We'll get into our full thoughts on the DC Extended Universe probably another time where we have a movie of theirs to discuss. But short and simple, Suicide Squad. Not a fan, personally.
I don't think any of us are.
Made a major amount of money at the box office, however. And of course, they're moving along with the number 2, along with 70 other projects, following Justice League and their big expansion come November. And we have a director attached to Suicide Squad, too. It was rumored for a while. Nate, it's funny they bring up Nonstop, because Jean-Claude Serra, the French director of that film, another Liam Neeson action film, Unknown, the Blake Lively shark film that is either loved or hated, The Shallows. He was the director of that, and he was attached to the project for a while after David Ayer decided that he was not coming back, but they have officially given it to Gavin O'Connor. Now, Jake, when I say Gavin O'Connor, what's the first movie that comes to your head? Warrior, with Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton,
great movie.
Fantastic MMA film. He's kind of this gun-for-hire, solid director. That's really his masterpiece, in my opinion. He's made
so good.
He's made some other movies, a good sports movie in Miracle, the one about the USA hockey.
Oh, I forgot he did that.
The USA hockey film. But a lot of the times he's just kind of a director for hire. Last year he did The Accountant, which was the Ben Affleck.
That was mixed, right?
Ben Affleck action film. But Warner Brothers apparently really liked the work he did on that, and that has tapped him as the top choice for this. He is writing the screenplay as well, and I don't think we have a date yet, but they're expected to start shooting next year. Jake, based on your limited knowledge of Gavin O'Connor, based on what you thought of Suicide Squad, what do you think of the pairing?
I mean, I love Warrior. I thought Accountant was decent. So I guess from the movies that I've seen, I'd say he's a pretty good director. But I just don't think we need a Suicide Squad 2.
Oh, come on, Jake. We're in franchise zone. We're going to get the sequel whether we like it or not.
I mean, yeah, but with the amount of stuff they already have coming out, if that wasn't the, I don't know, it wasn't even a big hit with audiences. Like, I mean, I guess it was, but it was mixed with audiences. But I don't know. I'm more just not looking forward to it than anything. But, O'Connor's a pretty good director, so I guess if they're going to do it, I hope they do it right.
It was certainly a hit with audiences. Remember they had that whole petition where they were trying to shut down Rotten Tomatoes?
Yeah, that's true.
So the people we talked to...
with specific fans,
The people we talked to didn't like it, but it certainly has its fans. People are going to see the movie.
Yeah, my cousin is one of the biggest defenders of this movie because he's a huge comic book nerd, reads everything, has watched every single animated DC movie, and is permanently attached to these characters for life, sort of thing. So he'll defend this movie to high heaven when I can just crap on it all day. But this movie's going to get made. It's just a matter of who directs it. I'm not too familiar with this director, but I do love Miracle, and it is my old friend Tim's favorite movie, so shout out to you, buddy. There could be worse things. I just hope that they look not only as a studio, but as a director and as actors, what went wrong in Suicide Squad, and let's fix it for the sequel.
And maybe hire one editor instead of, 4.
You just made me very, very sad. Because you said it could be worse. And I don't want to think about my superhero movies that way. But...
Well, that's why we have
We're
Marvel.
in the current state of affairs where that's what I have to think. And I agree. That's kind of how I feel about the news. It could be worse. At one point, I also forgot to mention that there was rumors that Warner Brothers was looking at Mel Gibson, which, how crazy would that be?
I actually really want to see that. Oh my god.
What cameo would he make?
Oh, I don't know. Oof. Captain Boomerang's dad or something. But I think it's a solid choice for a movie that I'm not solid on at all. I don't even know what this film's going to look like, because some of the biggest stars of this film are getting their own spin-offs. Joker and Harley Quinn, we know, are going to get their own movie. It's a matter, I think there might be a Deadshot movie in the works. You got to figure Captain Boomerang's going to figure into Flash somewhere. So it's really, it's a matter of, this whole universe is a mess right now. I don't know what the scope of it is. I don't know where we're going to head with this. And honestly, it might be just like polishing a turd, to be completely honest. You can get as many good...
I think we got to wait till Justice League, and if Justice League flops, they might do a whole nother DC reset. I would not be surprised.
It would be devastating if it flopped for them.
Honestly, though,
it would be devastating to Warner Brothers, be devastating to DC. But that's just it. They need to compete with Marvel and Disney. They're going to keep churning out these movies because critically good or critically bad, they're going to keep making money, and they need to keep that income.
Honestly, from a quality standpoint, I think Nate has the right idea. If Justice League flops like Batman vs Superman did, I do think they need to reset, and this will all just be a few years stretch that we look back on and cackle about. Because if Justice League ends up being that bad and Wonder Woman was the only decent success they had, just go back to please, for the sake of America, go back to the drawing board. Just like Nate said, reset. I don't want to keep, because I'm gonna go see them, but I don't want to keep watching these ass movies.
Yeah. And you have to think, especially with there's rumors of Ben Affleck wanting out, and they have the out to do a reset, and it would suck because we'd probably lose Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, possibly. But I also think, you're right. It would be just a little blip on their history of what happens when big studios trying to keep up with other big studios and rush their work. It's all the world building that Marvel did without the understanding of what made that work. And as far as the specific news goes, I like Gavin O'Connor as a director fine. He's done some good movies. He's done some bad movies. But at the same time, how much could he possibly bring to this that would make it so different? And that's what I'm most worried about. And I think that's going to wrap up our news here. So we had a couple of good discussion about some very interesting stories. A pretty big week in news to start with. And we're going to start our reviews with a big movie to talk about. It is the adaptation of Stephen King's It.
When you're alone as a kid, the monsters see you as weaker. You don't even know they're getting closer. Till it's too late.
Here. Take it.
Now, It, of course, the adaptation of one of the most popular Stephen King novels. It's a 1,200-page magnum opus, part Stand By Me, part horror film icon kind of thing, and it's an adaptation of that. Of course, there was the famous miniseries back in the 1990s that it starred Tim Curry. That was on television, but this is your first look at Pennywise the Dancing Clown and the Losers Club on the big screen. Now, who are the Losers Club exactly? The film takes place in 1980. There's Billy, played by Jada Lieberher. There we go. He was the star, actually, of Book of Henry, which we were talking about earlier. There's Ben, played by Jeremy Ray Taylor. There's Beverly, the only girl in the group, played by Sophia Lillis. There's Richie, the motor mouth, played by Finn Wolfhard of Stranger Things. There's Mike, the outsider, African-American, played by Chosen Jacobs. There's Eddie, the hypochondriac, played by Jack Dylan Grazer. And there's Stanley, the Jewish one, played by Wyatt Olaf. And these guys, they're a unlikely band of heroes in the town of Derry, Maine, and they are stuck fighting this entity. Pennywise the Dancing Clown is the entity's favorite form, played by Bill Skarsgård, a Swedish actor who, of course, is related to Stellan Skarsgård of the Avengers, and Alexander Skarsgård, like Legend of Tarzan that we were talking about earlier. And they have to face off on this entity that feeds on fear and has been making kids go missing, including Billy's little brother, Georgie. Now, we're going to get into the specifics a little bit more as we go along, because there are potential things to talk about the story that might be spoilers, but aren't if you understand the structure of the book. So I'm going to leave them out for now. And just so everybody is clear, we will have a regular discussion here of It. We're going to give our ratings, which Nate will explain to you later on in the show. And then we're going to talk a little bit more in depth for those of you who have seen the film, and there are a lot of you, most likely, because this film is doing amazing at the box office. We're going to go more in depth into spoilers. So without further ado, let's get into our specifics of our criticisms. Nate Lungarini, what did you think of Andy Muschietti's It?
Alrighty, so this is definitely an interesting movie to start our audio reviews on, because our listeners will soon find out that I am a scaredy cat. I hate watching horror movies for the first time. After I see them once, I can go back, enjoy, rewatch movies because I have an understanding of what's going to happen. But that first time, I am the kind of person who will clench my chair, hold the person's hand next to me, kind of thing. I don't do well with horror. So even just watching the trailers for this one, and the marketing for this movie was fantastic. It got me interested in the movie, but even watching the trailers were freaking me out. So I went into this movie already dreading what I was about to watch. When the trailers stopped, I had to audibly say to myself, okay, this is happening. So now, what did I think actually watching the movie? I think the first 2/3 of this movie are exactly what you get from the trailers, and it is a horrifying, fantastic horror movie. The audience is put in the same perspective as the kids, where they don't really know what's going on. And because of that, when you're watching this movie and you get introduced to it, and it can take on these different forms and can come out in so many different ways, you don't know where to look for the scares. And because of that, you have no idea what's going to happen. Yes, there's a little bit of jump scares, but it's more like a panic button. And when it appears, you are watching something horrible and you want to run just like the kids are in this movie away from it. And I thought that as a film, as a horror piece, this was really, really scary and really, really good. Like Andrew hinted at, once you kind of explain the rules of it, and the kids realize that they need to go after this monster in the third act, it comes more into a Stand By Me tone, and it's still scary, but the initial fear factor isn't quite there. That said, really, really enjoyed this movie, and I'll hand it off to Jake for his thoughts.
All right. I agree with some of that, but on a completely different note, anybody listening should know, as far as movies go, I do not scare easy. I really don't. It takes a lot to really, freak me out in a movie. And honestly, it's been a long, long time since I've really been afraid of something I've seen on screen. So that being said, I was pretty excited to go see this when when I heard about how quote unquote terrifying it was. And to be honest, I didn't find it all that scary, but I will say I personally thought it was at its creepiest in the first act. I think once we got to know it a little bit more in the second and then the third act, I wasn't really scared of, quote unquote it anymore. There was one real good sequence in the second act, but generally speaking, I was more, hair tingling, like my hair was tingling and standing up on my neck more in the first act than any other point. But I will also argue, I think this is just as much a what's the word for good character arcs and stuff like that. Coming of age. It's that's what I'm looking for. It's as much of a coming of age tale as it is horror, and I really, really enjoyed that. I think first off, I think Skarsgård was great as Pennywise.
I agree, absolutely.
But I think all the kid actors were very good, and even though I really wasn't scared of the movie that much, I really enjoyed watching it. I think it's a really good and well-made movie overall, even though I didn't think it was that scary personally.
So a big detail that I left out that I kind of hinted at, the movie's directed by Andy Muschietti, who is only really known for 2013's Mama, which I think is a pretty underrated horror movie personally. Jake, I know you think it's a little more pedestrian than that. Nate, have you ever seen Mama?
I can't say I have, and I can't say I have any interest.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think it's all right.
So Nate, you're not gonna watch horror movies unless we force you to. That's what I'm getting from you.
There's been a couple exceptions for ones that do really, really well critically, or if I get recommended. It Follows was the last one that I watched from you guys. And I'll see the quote unquote classics like Alien and that sort of thing. But yeah, I'm not a horror buff by any means.
Right. And I listened to everything you said, both of you, and I agree with pieces of it as well. I think I liked the movie a little bit better than both of you did, as far as the scare factor per se. But I also agree with you, Jake, that this movie is probably even more than a horror movie. It's more of a coming-of-age drama that just happens to have a dancing killer clown in it.
A demon clown.
And a lot of the onus of the film lays on the chemistry of these kids, and every single one of them, maybe except for the kid that plays Stanley, the Jewish kid. He needed a little work, I think. But other than that, I think the rest of them are fantastic actors. They're funny, they're charming, they're really likable and really sympathetic, and that goes a long way in differentiating this film from a lot of just generic horror films today. The clown, of course, does that as well. And Skarsgård, as you hinted, is fantastic as Pennywise. He kind of really gives this character a depth that is a lot more than you would think from a character like Freddy Krueger or Michael Myers or something. They're just these big hulking, scary things that run at you. Pennywise, you get kind of the idea that this thing is truly evil and demonic, and that he really enjoys terrorizing and killing these kids. And you really get a sense for that in the opening scene of the film, especially, which
that's brutal.
It's a brutal, tense, and just creepy scene, and Skarsgård is at his best there. But
I was more startled than anything. I did not expect that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh wow, they really set the tone for the rest of the movie, I think.
Yeah, this is nothing like the original TV special.
Yeah.
Which I actually haven't seen.
That was more just like unsettling, kind of just weird, quirky even. This one is whole different, horrifying, panic kind of movie.
And the pieces I've seen of that 1990s miniseries, I'll tell you, it does not. I mean, I might have just seen it at too old an age because a lot of the people that I talked to saw it young and still find it really creepy, and that's why they were so drawn to this one. It's a part of nostalgia again. And that's like the key word of the last 5 years as far as a lot of these big blockbusters go. It worked for Jurassic World. It worked for Star Wars The Force Awakens. It's just kind of the nostalgia of seeing something that you familiarize yourself with and going back and experiencing it. But the movie doesn't lean too much on that. It really is, it's set in the 80s. It's set in the time period that a lot of people grew up in and are really sympathetic and empathetic towards. But it also does a great job of just feeling like a story that could happen now. And these kids have relatable problems. They have relatable interactions with each other. The movie's really funny, is what I was not expecting going in. Especially with Finn Wolfhard delivering some great one-liners as Richie, playing a completely different character than he does on Stranger Things. But the movie's just, it's really likable, and it's a great, entertaining popcorn flick, which a lot of horror movies have a trouble finding that balancing act in. Of course, there's problems, and I'll let you guys kind of delve into your problems a little bit more before I introduce mine. But I would say, just from the tone I'm getting, out of the three of us, I like the film the most.
I think you do, but I don't want to mistake it because I didn't really, it didn't really frighten me at all. But I did generally enjoy it, and I would like to see it again. I would recommend it to people. Just as an overall, well-made film from that kind of standpoint. It's still, really good, and it also feels a lot fresher than the average horror movie does nowadays.
And I think a big part of that is the whole fear element and kind of the adaptability of the character, and it just allows the entity to kind of feed on the fear of all these different kids and take on different forms. And I think for me, that's why it feels fresh, especially in a way that it totally couldn't have been. If he was just a clown the whole time, it wouldn't be as interesting. But he takes on the persona of, say, a scary picture that one of the kids is freaked out by, or some kind of trauma that they've gone through in the past. And again, it makes it relatable, and I think it makes it definitely better than the average horror film as far as, differentiating itself goes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. I enjoyed this film. I won't say that I didn't just because I'm a scaredy cat. And just touching back on what you were talking about with the kids, Drew, I think everyone can relate to being one of these characters at some point in your childhood. And I think that's why it's so great to connect to, and why even in the third act where it changes tones to a little bit more of the Stand By Me instead of a horror movie sort of aspect, it still works as a movie.
Right. And I think one element that we haven't discussed really yet is that these kids are not the only kids in the film. There are also some bully characters. There's Henry Bowers, he's a couple years older than them, played by Nicholas Hamilton. And then there's his 2 or 3 Goonies that are not really that important. But I think the characterization of them, and this is a thing that happens in all of these kind of movies, but I would really just love a movie to not make a bully a psychopath, add some kind of shade to him. And it kind of was off-putting when all of these kids are so relatable, and then you have this one psychopathic bully character who's trying to murder kids out here. That was a big problem for me.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I almost forgot about literally the arguably more evil characters in this movie. Sure, you have a psychopathic clown in it, but you have the 3 main bullies, the main one being Henry Bowers' character, played by Nicholas Hamilton, like you said. And I kind of agree with you, Drew, that maybe they're even a little bit too evil, but this wasn't the movie where you weren't going to have a psychopathic bully, because that's just par for the course for Stephen King movies, unfortunately, and books.
It's true, and I don't know how much of it is indicative of the source material, and I should be taking out on the book itself. I'm going to take the book to task from what I know about it in the spoiler section, talk about things that were omitted, thank God.
Yeah.
But Yeah, you're right. This was not going to be the one that.
Yes, Stephen King always likes to bring in how humans are the most evil thing in the universe. It comes out a lot, like even in Shawshank Redemption, that sort of thing, that there are just evil people. And yeah, you can have fantasy evil, but the real evil that you see in the parents who don't care about kids or actively hurt their kids, just creepy people in the movie who seem to be incredibly greedy. Those are arguably some of the scariest aspects of the movie because they happen in real life. And that's one of Stephen King's biggest lessons in all of his works. Jake, so I wasn't surprised to see that.
Any problems, Jake, that you can think of?
I definitely agree with the bullying. And I do kind of hate as well when movies just depict bullies as these... It's just over the top. I hate when bullying is over the top. Like even though I have never witnessed any bullying like that personally, I find it hard to believe that all these movies have an experience when bullying is that severe. Like every so often you'll hear about some serious bullying, but like every movie portrays it like that. So I definitely agree with you there, but
I wouldn't say every movie portrays bullying like this movie does.
Not every single one.
But you see
don't know what real bullying is because you were the bully. That was the problem.
Me? No, I was not a bully. Well, only to Duggan. No, I'm kidding. But no, I feel like a lot of movies do portray bullying that way. But a much lesser note, it's not even a problem. It's more of like a little qualm I have, and it doesn't take away from the movie, I don't think. But Nate, did you see either of the Conjuring movies?
No.
Okay, Angie, I know you saw Conjuring 2. The second Conjuring. I had a similar small issue with this as well. And it is very small, but in it and the second Conjuring movie, I feel like the sets are almost too elaborate. And I'm wondering if you have any idea what I mean. I feel like in a horror movie, if the set is too Hollywood, it takes me out of the movie just a little bit. Like, I would prefer the sets to be a little more smaller, a little more, I guess realistic, a little more, I don't know, almost duller. Like when a set is more elaborate and more out there, it feels too much like movie magic, and I feel like it's just, I don't know, it feels all weird for me.
Wow,
I didn't get that impression.
You
at all
really
from
grabbed
this
those
movie.
pliers out to nitpick the shit out of this. Wow.
But I felt like this in the second Conjuring as well. I prefer horror movies to feel a little, I don't know, not as Hollywood per se. I still really enjoyed it, but I've felt like that in the past with movies as well. And Conjuring.
And I think this is kind of the case where, kind of what Nate said, that this was not going to be the movie that bucks that trend. I can see what you're saying, but I don't really agree with it, especially here.
I don't at all.
The house, the house setup, the big house where a lot of the big set pieces of the film take place. It is pretty intricately designed, but again, this is a fantastical movie about a killer, whatever, that takes the form of a clown. Like, this was not going to be the movie to buck that trend. Another problem that I had that I wanted to bring up, did anybody feel that the film got a little overly comedic at points? Like, in very important...
This is probably my only issue with the film, was these big changes in tone that were kind of sudden. And I'll let you talk about it first, and then we'll chip back in.
What I was going to say is that there were some really important exposition scenes that happen here, where they're explaining things about the town of Derry and things that the character of Ben has uncovered. And just in the background, these jokes always coming from Finn Wolfhard's Richie, and like 80% of them land, no problem. But like even in the background, there's some sight gags and stuff like that, kind of distracts from information that's really important to understand. And sometimes it was a little fatiguing to me. A little bit of an overindulgence in trying to get the audience to have a good time and to lighten the tension.
Yeah, I definitely think that if this film had flaws, it's in its tonal tension drops. And because you go from one of these full panic scenes where the clown is coming after one of the kids, or they have to get away from the bullies, or just something huge. And what a horror film naturally does is gives you audience a little bit of a breather to just kind of catch themselves, and then get ready for the next big scare. For this movie, instead of the breather, it felt like a completely different movie. And I think the big points for me, without getting into spoilers, there's 3 different times where just like a song comes on the radio and there's a montage to the song. And that just takes me out of the movie. It's no longer a horror movie. It's just a different tone altogether. Because they're usually upbeat songs and they're just kids being kids, and that's cool to see. But it was just too big of a shift for me to get back into the scare mode,
right.
You know? And I think that's my biggest complaint with the movie is there's the times of relief are, instead of a relief, it's a tonal shift, and I think it's too much in that direction.
I think I have more of a problem specifically with the amount of that. I think I was able to take the shifts better than you were, it sounds like. But I definitely sympathize with what you're saying, because I did feel at points it was a trick that they used over and over again. Jake, did you have a problem with the kind of shifting of tones at all?
I noticed it a little bit, but only like a few certain instances when, like, if it was like really, really jarring, or if something really, really freaky just happened, and then right away there's a joke, I feel like that might be a little too much. But I didn't, none of that really came to mind quite like, it did for you guys, for me.
So I think this would be a good time to transition. I think we've exhausted everything we can say surface-wise about it without getting into specifics. But it sounds like we're all pretty positive on the film, and to determine how positive we are, we're going to give our ratings. It's a scale that Nate devised, so I'm going to let him go ahead and explain each point of it.
All right, so we are the middle seats, so it's only fitting that we rate our movies on the seat scale. So everything here is based around the pleasantness of a type of chair that you might go and watch this movie in. So let's start at the top. A perfect movie is a royal throne, and everyone will have their own unique ways to determine what's a perfect movie for them. It's going to change with each of our opinions. But generally, a royal throne is a fantastic movie that executes exactly what it wants to do in a creative and entertaining way. It's a film masterpiece. Step below that is a plush recliner. Ooh. So this is your great film. It's a safe and comfortable chair that gives you just a fun living room kind of experience with the movie. Moving down to our middling rank is a wooden seat. So this can be a good film that may be weighed down by some bad moments, or just doesn't hold your attention to make it a good movie. But it's not a bad one by any means. It's just not something that you'd like to spend a long time watching. Moving down to our lower rankings, a damp lawn chair is a forgettable, dull, and aggravating film. There might be some entertainment here, but you have to literally wipe away some wet mess to enjoy it. And then finally, we have a sleazy outhouse, which is just a bad film. Makes all the wrong decisions. It's a waste of your time. Don't see this movie. So those are our 5 different seats for 5 different types of movies.
Right. And then what about the bag of popcorn marker?
All right. So in addition to our rating system, we're also going to have a quick marker for a movie that should absolutely be seen in theaters, and that is with a bag of popcorn. So, for example, if I really liked a movie, gave it a royal throne, and you have to see it in theaters, I would say that it is a royal throne with a bag of popcorn. All right. If we're all clear on the ratings, I think that we should start and give ours for it.
I think Nate, you should start first since it's your ratings.
I agree.
Alrighty. So I'm going to give this a plush recliner. As someone who doesn't watch a lot of horror movies, this met my expectations. It was really, really fun. It was definitely a good experience after I stopped pissing myself.
Maybe it should be a damp recliner.
I enjoyed the scares.
Maybe it should be a damp recliner then if you were pissing yourself the whole time.
Maybe. There's definitely some tonal issues that prevents this from being a perfect movie. But all in all, I really, really like this one. And I'm actually looking forward to seeing it again now that I know where all the big scares are.
Jake Hensler, what do you think?
I'm a little. I have my rating. I'm slightly torn because I'm typically hesitant to give movies a great, like a literary word great. I'm hesitant to give a lot of movies that, but it's certainly not an average film either. So I'm gonna go with plush recliner and with a bag of popcorn because I do think this should definitely be seen in theaters. You'll get a good experience with this in theaters.
I've seen the film twice now. I went to go see it again Friday night after seeing it at an early screening at a local theater that I'm associated with a couple of weeks ago. And the film is actually better the second time around. Nate's right. It's because you understand where the scares are coming from and you can kind of, relax a little. You're not always on edge. But there's also an element of you being able to appreciate the artistry. And I don't think I talked enough about how good of a job I think Muschietti does as the director. There's a lot of good imagery here. It's really hard to direct some of these kid actors, and I'm sure they weren't the easiest people to get to have the chemistry, but the fact that they come off the way that they are, and that the fact that some of these kids are so good, like the kid that plays Eddie, Jack Dylan Grazer, is amazing. He gives the kind of performance here that I honestly think could lead to some kind of star-making career. And of course, Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise is excellent. But I think it all comes together as this really great, entertaining popcorn flick that you need to see with an audience. So I'm going to give it a plush recliner, also with a bag of popcorn. I really enjoyed it. It's right outside the top 10 of the year for me. I think it's having a huge cultural impact, and I think that can't be understated. But I also think it's a really pretty damn good movie on its own as well. So that gets into our general ratings for It. And now this is the point, if you have not seen It yet, which first of all, we all are suggesting that you do see it with a big audience if you can.
Yeah, definitely with a bag of popcorn.
Make sure you're tuning out now because we're going to start spoiling elements of the film and we're going to start spoiling elements of the future of a potential It franchise now. If you have seen the film or you just don't care about spoilers, which, what are you doing, weirdo? Spoilers are horrible. You don't want movies spoiled for yourself. Stick around. Without further ado, we're going to get into our spoiler section here for It. So guys, first of all, what I want to talk about here in the spoiler section is I want to discuss a little bit what's not in the film. Nate, did you read the book?
I haven't actually read it, but I totally scoured the internet about this book beforehand, kind of just to get a sense of what I was getting myself into, because I didn't want to be completely scared crap ton here. So I know exactly what you're going to start bringing up.
Well, first of all, Jake, I know you haven't read the book because when I told you what I'm about to say, you were absolutely floored. First of all, this is a two-part story. The film ends with It Chapter 1. And for some people, that was a bit of a surprise. But if you know the nature of the story and the nature of Pennywise, the entity coming back every 27 years, you knew there was going to be a part 2 with these kids as adults. We can do some fantasy casting for that in a bit. But I want to talk about the smart omission to take out the orgy scene between the kids and Beverly Marsh, which apparently is a huge WTF moment of the book. It is something that when somebody told it to me, I thought they were kidding. And then I went on Wikipedia, and either Wikipedia is also kidding or it's a real thing. And I'm glad this was taken out of a major motion picture. Can we speculate what drugs Stephen King was on to write that in the first place?
Well, what
go ahead, Jake.
Well, I was gonna say you probably have something a little more important to say, but I saw this article that I don't remember where I saw it, but apparently Stephen King is shocked that people have such an issue with that and not the fact that children are being murdered. Which, if you put it on paper, I see what he's saying, but like that's what the movie's about. So randomly throwing an orgy in there just doesn't. Not only does it not fit, it's just weird. it's not necessary at all. I don't think. So I don't know. Whatever you wanted to say, Nate.
It's definitely a weird aspect of the movie, or sorry, the book. Yeah, and there was not a chance in hell that a Hollywood movie, even one that is embracing the rated R nature of this movie and not making it a PG-13 thing, there's not a chance that this would show up in a Hollywood movie. It's just so bizarre and weird. It's actually kind of surprising. When you first brought up what you were going to talk about, I thought you were going to talk about the weird mythology of these movies, not the orgy scene. In the books, it is actually essentially at war with another cosmic entity, which is a giant mystical turtle.
Yeah. And they hint at that in the movie. They say something about a turtle.
And they give it a couple. They give it a couple cameos. They mention a turtle swimming in the lake with them in the lake scene, and they drop a Lego turtle when Billy gets scared in his house. And the director has come out and said, "Yeah, it's just like a little too weird for the first appearance of a horror movie, and maybe they'll play more into the whole cosmic nature of it in the sequel. Maybe we'll see a giant turtle that spit out the universe in the sequel, but it's kind of just weird kingism at this point.
Wouldn't that be wild?
It would be wild. It'd be such a weird departure from this movie, though. So I'd be surprised if we saw it. Maybe more cameos to it. But yeah, it's weird. And yeah, between the giant telekinetic turtle and the orgy scene, it's kind of just Stephen King being Stephen King. I'm glad it's not in the movie. It didn't need to be in the movie for any reason. Didn't even need to be hinted at. And because that would have just distracted from what otherwise is a very, very solid
It's really
horror
surprising,
flick.
actually, that Stephen King likes the movie. He's come out and said that he likes the movie because he usually does not like adaptations of his work. He is famously a hater of Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, which of course is one of the best movies made out of a Stephen King adaptation, but apparently is not anywhere near.
That's weird. I thought he liked The Mist.
He might
though.
like The Mist. I'm not sure. I don't know how he feels about.
I remember reading an article saying that he liked the movie's ending of The Mist better than his own ending, and he wished that he.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the ending of it, I'm not going to get into what I know about it because I know Jake, you probably want to be surprised. But the second part is typically received as the lesser part of the story. It's going to be really important to see who they cast as these kids, especially with the kids doing such a killer job throughout it. I mean, all of them. I went into detail on Jack Dylan Grazer and Finn Wolfhard, but Sophia Lillis as Beverly was a standout. Jeremy Ray Taylor was really charming as Ben. Jaden Lieberher really made up for the work that he did in the Book of Henry, which really wasn't his fault. And Jackson Robert Scott is another guy that I forgot to mention as Georgie in that opening scene, which is the creepy as hell sewer scene. So pedo and so kind of brutal off the top. It really set the tone for the. I forget which one of you said it, but it really set the tone for the rest of the film.
That was me.
Hey, I don't. What? Never mind.
What did you say?
Nothing.
Never mind.
But let's do some fantasy casting. Are there anybody in mind that you would like to see as these kids going forward?
Ooh.
I know a lot of people have said this, and it's pretty common, but and it could just be red hair. But Jessica Chastain seems like she could fit Beverly pretty well.
And she worked with Andy Muschietti on Mama.
Right. So hopefully there can be a little pairing there.
I also heard Amy Adams potentially for that role. I think that would also work as well.
Has she ever done a horror film?
Good question. I think she did.
Like, she's done thrillers. Yeah. She had the 2 this year with Arrival and the one about the book. I'm blanking.
Who else is in it?
Nightcrawlers, right?
She's not in that.
Shoot, who am I forgetting?
that Nightcrawler is the one with Jake Gyllenhaal. That doesn't have to do with the book either.
Nocturnal Animals is what you're thinking of.
Oh, there you go.
That's what I'm thinking. Thank you, Jake.
But yeah, Amy Adams did Bug early in her career. I'm pretty sure that's closer to a horror movie. But I don't know. We'll have to see. That's a pretty big name to get. But again, with the movie making over $200 million.
Yeah, it'll be a big property. Like, there's nobody in this cast who's done anything remotely huge, save for maybe the kid from Stranger Things.
Yeah, I think they just kind of lucked into him, though. To be honest. Yeah.
Honestly, yeah.
So it's gonna be interesting to see who they pick. Somebody said Chadwick Boseman, possibly for Mike. It'll be interesting to see who they pick for Ben, because the character of Ben loses a lot of weight. He becomes kind of a ladies' man when he gets older. Somebody suggested Jeremy Renner possibly for him. There are a bunch of possibilities of where they could go. They got to bring Skarsgård back as Pennywise, of course.
I saw somebody say Ben is the fatter one, right?
Yes.
Somebody was talking about casting Chris Pratt as him.
That would be good. He'd be in the
I thought would be interesting.
It would be fitting.
I thought it would be interesting.
I think the hard part here is that you don't want to have a lot of big names, because it's going to be weird to see big names get scared.
That's what I was thinking.
You know? I can't see a Chris Pratt getting scared.
Chris Pratt?
Yeah, I heard that too.
Oh, God. Chris Pratt, excuse me.
Yeah, I heard that too.
It's like his doppelganger.
Anyway, but yeah, I can't see them picking super recognizable people just because the star power is going to distract from
maybe one or two.
Needs to still be a horror movie.
Yeah, maybe grab one or two big names and then take a bunch of like more B-list actors.
Yeah. Hopefully they're casting
even
well
then,
for
you don't want
people that like fit the role. It's not like they're picking like House of Wax actors or the Gallows actors or something like that. They're picking people that are actually good talents because they found them here.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the kids carried the movie. I think the adults are going to have a harder time.
Especially with the nature of that story and what the reveal of what Pennywise actually is, which when I heard it, I kind of rolled my eyes a bit. But we will get into that when it too comes out, and we're still going to be doing this podcast in 2019. Speaking to some of the big set pieces of the film, Jake, you hinted at a really good set piece in the second act that you maybe wanted to touch on.
Yes, even though I think the haunted house, that was a good scene in the second act. I thought generally, when sets are so elaborate, it feels a little weird for a horror movie to have elaborate sets. Personally, like if they seem big and blockbustery in a horror movie, I don't know. Maybe it's just personal taste for me. I think it's weird, or it just doesn't always sit well. But the scene in general was directed well and was effective.
Yeah, especially since at that point we'd seen everybody else's fears, but then we get to Richie's fear, which of course, it was a bit on the nose in the trailer, I thought, when he's in a room full of clowns, but they kind of made it work in this, by setting up that this indeed was his fear. Though they did establish it in kind of a throwaway line at one point, just, again, during a very important piece of exposition.
I actually think what was even more effective is that he found his own missing notice in the house.
Yeah, that was intense.
I like that a lot.
That was really cool.
I like that a lot.
That.
And that's what I was talking about. Pennywise just loves messing with these kids. In that same sequence,
he's such an asshole.
Yeah, exactly. No, he completely is. In that same sequence, when Eddie falls and pretty startlingly breaks his arm in a way that literally, that was probably the most disturbing imagery of the film for me, to be completely honest.
With him slobbering
he's slobbering all over him, and he's fake crying and mocking him and stuff. I was like, this thing really hates these kids. Like, I really got a sense of that and that character, just from his little motions there. And I think that's really hard to do in a role that could have very easily been just a stalk and chase kind of villain.
Yeah, I just kind of want to gush for a minute here. So talking about that scene in particular, Drew. When you watch a horror movie, you generally get the jump scare type movie or you get the dread movie. And this one didn't feel like either of those to me. This one felt more like a fun house, and it's only fitting that the clown's the main villain here, because you have extended takes with the scary thing. And that scene in particular really jumped out to me because you wanted to escape from Pennywise literally in front of you, toying with your arm and stuff for that. I feel like any other horror movie would have made Pennywise jump out at the kid, grab him, and then cut to another scene, and that's the scare. In this movie, the scare is that long-term panic of, oh my god, I need to get out of this scene, you know, and you're trapped in it.
No, that's a very good point, Nate. Actually, and like even though there were jump scares, it wasn't just jump scare, and it was jump scare follow through with why that's scary.
Exactly, and
yeah,
there were a couple takes where Pennywise is lunging at the kids, and instead of cutting there, you get the kids trying to run away from him charging after them. I think the projector scene is this movie's master scare. That one really got me.
One as well.
Especially because you thought you had seen the whole scene from the trailers, and then you have him coming out of the screen at the end. That was so good. That was so good.
I think the effect on Pennywise, where a lot of the time his head stays still, but the rest of his body starts to move. It's kind of a.
I did like that they surprised you with that too.
And you talk about how they take their time to show the kids running and everything. This is a lengthy movie. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes long, which is, yeah.
Is it really? I had no idea.
That's good. This is a lot about Muschietti's pacing and his control of entertainment and making sure that you're not dragging or anything like that. But in such a lengthy movie, I found it interesting that I still felt that a lot of parts were a little bit underdeveloped. And we're talking about, of course, Henry Bowers, of course, his character. He's just this. He's a psychopath, and there's a little bit of an attempt to sympathize with him towards the end, where they show his dad is apparently abusive, but it's too little, too late at that point.
No, I didn't care. Yeah, I didn't care.
Yeah,
I was like, too bad.
Tried to kill another kid.
Too bad.
Like, that was the end of that.
Right. So your dad's an asshole. You carved this kid's
twice.
stomach. I don't care.
Because he tried to kill Mike too.
Yeah, it's
just not, it wasn't a thing that worked very well. And I also felt that, I mean, these adult characters, if we say we are going to sympathize with Henry, then I needed more scenes with the police chief. I needed more with the kind of tension that's going on in Billy's house now that Georgie's gone. By the way, the kid that plays Georgie did a really nice job.
We keep forgetting about him, but he was actually great.
But we only got one scene with Billy's father, and we see the distraught that they're going through, having lost a child, and that really, if having more scenes with them would really feed into the guilt that Billy is feeling. Not that we didn't get that already, but I just wish there was a little bit more interaction with adults, so we kind of get the idea. Because one of the best lines of the movie, in my opinion, is when, and it might not have even been in the movie, it was definitely in the trailer. Billy says this line where, like, when you're a kid, you're all alone. Nobody believes you. They think you're naive. And that's why Pennywise comes and gets them. He feeds on their fear because nobody's going to stop this entity, because nobody's going to believe them that there's a killer clown on the loose. And I think to hammer that point in a little bit more, we should have gotten more adult interaction throughout the film. I might be a lone wolf on this one. What do you guys think about that?
Go ahead.
I see what you're saying, but I see what you're saying, but I thought the fact that Bev's dad did not see any blood in the bathroom proved that point pretty well.
True.
When he walked into the bathroom and he's just like, "What's wrong? What's wrong with you?" That for me was like, wow. There's nothing they can do about this other than do it themselves.
Yeah, you've kind of convinced me there. That kind of, yeah, I can see that. I think let me readjust my problem a little bit. I think it's less that I didn't have enough interaction with the adults, is that I didn't really care for the interaction scenes with the adults, because they're kind of, it's kind of the same problems I have with the bully. They're very two-dimensional, but Nate, you kind of alluded to that being the point.
That I can say.
Yeah, I kind of disagree with your stance on the bullies for sure. I wanted them to be monsters because I don't want to sympathize with the bullies. These guys are evil people that are made even more evil by Pennywise's presence in the town. We don't need to have a good bully character. You have like the two sidekicks that are kind of like, oh my god, you're going a little too far, aren't you? And Bauer's character is just insane, and I think that's part of the villain of this movie, is seeing how other humans can go insane. In terms of your complaints about character development, I don't think I needed to see too much more of the bullies' dads. But I would want to see a little bit more of the kids' interactions with their parents. Billy's dad, that you brought up, shows up at the beginning of the movie and then he's gone. That said, I think all of the kids' individual development is pretty good, with the exception of maybe Stanley's character, who isn't all the way developed.
I think he's just the worst actor, to be completely honest. I think they recognize that and kind of underwrote his role.
They also have to go through 6 kids and their own individual fears before they meet up and take down the bad guy. It's a lot to cover in one.
Yeah, and I thought they handled that really well.
Yeah,
I was going to say,
think the line that really stuck out to me from Billy's character was that he was more afraid to go into his own house than the haunted house.
Yeah, I thought that was powerful.
That was a big moment, and him understanding that Georgie was dead at the end of the movie, powerful stuff.
Yes,
that was
totally
really
agree.
good.
Totally agree. And it's actually funny that you said they handled the kids in the beginning well, because it sounds like I'm alone on this, but I thought fear-wise the most effective parts were in the beginning when we're establishing all their fears. I think that's
definitely.
when I was more. That's when I was the most freaked out by Pennywise, when we were establishing what he can do. So like when Ben is in the library, I don't know if you noticed, it's very background, but when he's in the library, did you notice the librarian in the background watching him?
Yeah, it was super creepy.
Awesome,
super creepy.
I loved that. I thought that was one of the freakiest parts of the movie for me. And then when he goes down,
go anywhere.
Yeah, he just stayed there watching. That might have been the freakiest part of the whole movie for me. I was like, this, not only can this thing transform into whatever it wants, it's messed up. It enjoys being creepy. I thought once we got to know him more, I found him less scary. But in the beginning, I was like, oh my goodness, what is this thing? What is it?
And I think that sequence especially is very seminal about really what works about this one. We're pushing an hour and a half here, so we should probably start to wrap it up here a bit.
Yeah, I was just noticing
I'll throw it to Nate for final thoughts in a second. But I think that scene, especially the one you're talking about, is seminal of everything that the movie does right. It captures, it captures a child's fear. It's got a good child performance in it. It has Skarsgård doing a great job as it. It kind of captures the mystery and intrigue and kind of the helplessness. You're talking about the librarian in the background not helping him. That kind of captures like the childhood naivety that kind of is the crux of this whole terrible dilemma that they go through. But anyway, Nate, final thoughts on it? Any other scenes you want to bring up? Any other points that you want to address before we say goodbye?
Yeah, just for the sake of time, I won't bring up too much more new stuff. Just talking about what we discussed. The child actors in this movie are great. They carry the movie. Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise is an instant hit. Can't wait to see what he does in the sequel. I hope that he's still as scary in the sequel. The amount of evil in this movie is great. The amount of creepy in this movie is great. And most of all for me, the amount of panic in this movie is something that you don't see from a lot of horrors. It's not just a jump scare. It's panic for an extended scene for an extended period of time. The first 2 acts of this movie are instant gold for me, and really, really enjoyed it.
Jake Hensler, final thoughts.
I think Nate hit the nail on the head. Generally very. Did I say something?
Hail on the head, but I was gonna let it go.
Oh, did I? I was gonna say Nate is laughing. I don't know why.
If I didn't let Chris crack go by ahead, I had to call you out on that one.
So Nate hit the nail on the head with what he said. I think it's definitely better than your average horror movie. It's very well made. We forgot to mention Cary Fukunaga helped write it. It's written well.
He was slated to direct it, but him and the studio had conflicting visions. So his writing credit is more kind of in name. They took elements of his script. But there's a whole fascinating video essay series online if you want to know more about that aspect of the project. But anyway, continue.
Maybe. Because I was going to say, I think there's a lot of stuff to cover and condense and adapt, and I think they did that very well. I think the director's vision is really good. Pretty much all the actors do a really good job. It's never boring. It's entertaining throughout. One of my biggest things is, honestly, I'm a little disappointed that I wasn't as scared as I hoped I would be. That's about it. I generally enjoyed the movie quite a bit.
As far as not getting as scared, I agree with you, Jake. I wasn't essentially scared, but
I guess I'm just a wimp here, guys. Sorry.
Well, no, we have plenty of friends, like Dylan, for example. We have plenty of friends who are talking about how terrifying it is, and I just didn't get that.
And Nate, I was about to compliment you. You didn't let me finish. I did feel the dread, though. I think that's a very good word to use. And I like, that the kids, we sympathize with their situation here. We sympathize with the decisions that they make, whether we think they're stupid or not. We don't really have a better solution. And when you're a kid, you only have so many options. And I think it really captures that. I think it's a really solid, entertaining, blockbuster horror movie. And I do recommend it that everybody go see it if you haven't already. So that'll do it here for this inaugural episode here of The Middle Seats. Before we go, we have some little bit of house cleaning that we need to take. House cleaning, both.
Both work.
I gotta clean my room anyway. You know what I meant. Anyway, we have a little bit of housekeeping to take care of. Nate, you know this information better than me, so I'm gonna let you talk a little bit about our email and our YouTube channel.
Yeah, sure thing. If you guys need to get in touch with us, if you have any questions, comments, things that you want us to cover, things that you want us to discuss during Lobby Talk, email us at themiddleseatshow@gmail.com. That's all spelled out, one word, themiddleseatshow@gmail.com. And our YouTube channel is under the same name. You can look us up there and watch these podcasts and any future ones that come out.
We appreciate it if you've taken it this time out here to stick with us. There's going to be kinks, like I just cut off Nate there, and I feel bad. It's our first episode, but we hope that we've entertained you enough to come back in the future. Next week, we're going to try to do a weekly show here. We're going to be reviewing Kingsman, The Golden Circle, the sequel to the 2015 action comic book adaptation. So that'll do it here. For Nate Lungarini and Jake Hensler, I'm Andrew Auger. This is The Middle Seats. Keep that seat warm, everyone. We'll be back soon.